Good morning, Clem, to everyone. Hope you're having a good day. We are having cold day here, not Saskatchewan cold, but pretty cold here. And they say more snow is on the way, but right now it's just cloudy and overcast. Hanging in there. Roads are dry. Grateful for that. How's weather where you are? So honestly, answer this question honestly. When I say the Ten Commandments to you, what do you think? Do you think positively? Do you think negatively? Do you think hard or soft or demanding or unreasonable or old fashioned or good? Or when you hear 10 commandments, what do you think? Would one of the things that you think be the 10 commandments are an expression of love? I would doubt that for most people that would be true. They probably would not associate the 10 commandments with love. Let's take a quick look at them again. And here they are. I called it God's top 10 list of good behavior because I love a good list. And this is one of the best ones. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not commit murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not lie. You shall not covet. How in the world can these be an expression of love? Well, it's funny. There's this incident in Jesus's ministry where the leaders have especially the religious leaders and the political leaders had pretty much turned against Jesus. That didn't take long. Jesus was never popular. He never will be popular in terms of the world, and he wasn't popular with his own people. I've been thinking about a verse in John chapter 1 that says that he was the light of the world. He was the expression of God, and he came to his own, and his own received him not. It says that people did not recognize him for who he was. But anyway, how is this an expression of love? Well, Jesus is having this interaction, this confrontation with the religious leaders and the political leaders, and they keep asking questions to try to trap him. And one of them asked him, we might as well just screen share this again. One of them asked him this interesting question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And I'm sure they were going to try to trip him up on this, because if he chose this, they would have argued that. If he chose that, they would have argued this type of thing. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied with this: love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your soul and with all of your mind. And that's found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. And then this is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself, which interestingly, the second greatest commandment in all of the scriptures that they had at that point was actually buried in Leviticus 19, verse 18, in a chapter dealing with all kinds of stuff. It's interesting that God stuck that right in there, probably in a chapter that most people have never read in their lives at all. But there it was. The second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. It says all of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So interesting: love for God and love for your neighbor. Interestingly, I put a line here because the first four have to do with our love for God. No other gods, no idols, don't misuse the name of the Lord. Oh, I can't wait to cover that one. We, as a culture, we abuse the Lord's name so much these days. Remember Sabbath day by keeping it holy. And then love your neighbor as yourself. Here you go. Honor father, mother, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, and don't covet. So at the end of the day, God's top 10 list of good behavior, otherwise known as the 10 commandments, are meant to be a way to express love. They're not meant to kill joy in our lives. They're not meant to create something that's so hard to do that it discourages us. None of us will ever live up to these 10 things. None of us, except for Jesus, none of us will ever live up to this. But what this was a guidebook on how to have loving relationships. A lot of people wonder, what does it mean to love God? Because we can't see God. So sometimes we wonder, what does it mean to love God? It's right there for us. What does it mean to love other people? A lot of people have funny notions today about what does it mean to love other people. Well, here it is. Here's the start of it. You want to build a good family, you want to build a good community, you want to build a good society, a good place to live. Here is a good start for people to follow. So it's God's top 10 list of good behaviors, actually a love guide. And most people probably don't realize that. And it all starts with the very first verse of "You shall have no other gods before me." And we've started to look at that. It's based on something he said earlier. I am the Lord Yahweh, your covenant making God, your relationship God. I am the Lord Yahweh, your God, Jehovah, the powerful God. Now, I want to say this, and we're going to end with this thought. Even though this is based on the concept of love and love lived out in daily living, and even though God is the most inclusive person you'll ever meet, there is a side to this where God is very exclusive. There's only one God. That's what Deuteronomy chapter 6 earlier than where Jesus quoted says that. The Lord your God is one God. There's only one God. There is not a white God or a native God or a Muslim God or I don't know, you name it. There's one God in the whole universe. And he's meant to be the God for everyone. And so he's open to everyone. Whosoever shall believe is something that's offered to everybody everywhere in the world. But he doesn't allow us to make God in our own image in the way that we want. And that's where we go astray. And that's why we have so many gods today. That's why the God of one religion doesn't sound like the God of another religion. Please don't buy into all of these roads lead back to the same God. They don't. Because this one God of the universe took the time to communicate who he is and what he expects from us. So in that sense, it's very exclusive. In another sense, it's very inclusive because it's the same thing for everybody. Salvation is available to everybody. It doesn't belong to one people group or one type of people or whatever. It recognizes that when we look at this list, God's 10 commandments, his top 10 list of good behavior, every one of us has probably violated quite a few of these things and quite a bit. That is human nature. Nobody has an advantage over someone else. When we look at this list, while we see the love of God in it, we also see our own shortcomings and how God loves us in spite of our shortcomings. And because of his son, Jesus, he offers us forgiveness and restoration and a place in his family again, and honor in place of shame, and forgiveness in place of guilt, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's the thing that I wanted to drive home today with you, is that the 10 Commandments are not a stuffy killjoy kind of list. It's actually a list that's meant to help us understand how do we live out what's important in life. How do we live out our loving relationships? So that's my word for the day. And we're going to come back to it. Maybe on Monday, we will look at "You shall not make for yourself an idol," and begin to look at what does that mean for us. But between now and then, I hope you have a good weekend.